Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Solstice Gaming Solstice Showdown. It's the time you guys have been waiting for. We get to watch the home team run right on up against some opponents in their own tournament. Bringing all the action today, I am Dor, and I'm joined by Moxie. Mox, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good because we've had a little bit of a talk with our producer. And the last map, apparently, last maps, went this distance. 5-map series coming out of that last game. So I'm hoping that these teams stand up to all of the hype. I personally adore to see long games of which really pushes them right to the brink. They have to keep that mentality, that focus going all the way through such a long series. And that is the true test of Overwatch.
Yeah, seeing him go the length, not just mentally, but adapting-wise, right? You have to pull out all these different tricks that test the depth of your hero pool. So many great things. I hope this series goes long, and honestly, it's going to be close, because Purple right now, sitting in that 4th seed, Solstice not quite in the same spot, even though it's their own tournament, right? That doesn't just make you better than all the other teams here. You do have to prove yourself.
At 13th seed, but everyone loves an underdog, and we can sort of talk our way through these teams, because there is something that we do have to point out. One of these players, the name is going to be coming up as AE, and continued on for a little while longer, but their name is apparently H-Key. So if you hear us shouting out that name, it is that player that we are referring to. We are not going to be listing out all of these A's and all of these E's, because we might not be here for 5 maps, but we'll still be going even after the game finishes.
I mean, it needs a little bit of like fleshing out, right? His full name apparently is H-Key Broke. So it's like, if he even wanted to make his actual username, he couldn't, because he'd only get the key broke part because the H-Key's broke. It's this paradox, and this is apparently his main account. I don't know how you do this, man. I don't know how you put up this. I know your teammates haven't had like a whole intervention at this point. Like, my name's like 4 letters. It's not hard. Moxie is the same. Like, you even had the God on there. We're nowhere near the number of AEs he's got.
I mean, I don't even have the God on my tag either. It's just straight up Moxie, and if you really want to rush it out, you can shorten it to Mox. I don't really call you T, but hey... It's nice, it's short, it's snappy, and Lijiang Tower is where we're going to be headed off to first, and that is anything but short and snappy, because these fights are long, they're grueling, and they really test that front line's metal. If it's control center popping up, you're going to be seeing that Reinhardt, you're going to be seeing the Zarya, you're going to see 2 teams meet in the middle, gargantuan fight, as both of these guys grappled to pick up that point first and move into the place everyone wants to be on control center, holding on to choke.
I mean, that's exactly the point. Lijiang Tower, I feel like, is by far one of the most interesting control maps strategy-wise, because almost every strategy on Lijiang Tower is extremely map-specific. Whether it be those heavy-handed dives that we see on Gardens, where they're... pardon me. Where they're constantly attempting to draw this point out all the way up to a 99%, even if it means staggers in an ultimate economy, or whether it's Night Market, where Symmetra just reigns supreme, or inside in the actual control center where things just get really chaotic with the brawl. There are very specific set strategies on these maps. We've seen teams try to break them in recent memory, especially on Night Market, where people are just sick and tired of running the Symmetra. They want to run something different, so they try the spam. But honestly, I don't think they've had the same success. What have your recent thoughts been, though, on Night Market?
So Night Market is one of those where you have to run the Symmetra, because if the enemy's running a Symmetra and you don't, you instantly lose one of the best chances at winning that first fight. Symmetra allows a team to traverse safely onto that point without losing anyone early on in the rotation, and it sets up a DPS to do insane amounts of damage and control of that point, all by only setting up 3 dinky turrets around the door. And I worry. We're already seeing a Symmetra popping up for one team, that's Purple. We're not seeing Solstice field a Symmetra of their own. Yes, they've got the Ashe. Yes, they've got the Echo, but they're not going to have that mobility when it comes to your support lineup. And you may have that poke damage coming on through, but no, you don't have a Symmetra to worry about. Neither teams are going to be on equal footing.
No, and starting off with this double shield composition, they're not going to get to the point particularly quickly, but seemingly neither are Purple here. They are taking their sweet time moving on up, and they themselves have opted for an Ashe Echo. A little bit curious, but now that they're stuck in their own choke here, Solstice don't have that many ways to go.
And Solstice, they've had the movement, they've got the mobility, they're already onto that point, and Joey is 75% of the way to an amplification matrix. Purple have to intrude onto a point, onto a team that's already set up behind natural cover, something that Shields just do not have. It doesn't break, it stays up and around.
Yeah, Purple have such a good advantage here, but that amplification matrix looks to open things up, force him back off. Greg, the only thing keeping this point alive right now, if they can focus down the Sigma, wrap around to him, it's going to be a great start, but now it's Purple's turn. Amplification matrix out, Gravitic Flux already coming up and slamming him right back down. Purple hold on to their point.
And a beautiful pull as well coming out from Innominat with that Orisa. Everyone into the middle, everyone picked up in that Sigma Flux, and Silverstar did not have the Transcendence. That was what the team needed if you were Solstice to save yourself. Immortality Field, we saw it came out, it got burned away almost instantly, and Purple was still able to pick up the kills, still able to keep the point in their control. And look at the ultimates that these guys are coming into. They've got a duplication. They are going to have the Transcendence Silverstar wishes he has right now. They've got that staying power that Solstice do not have access to.
Ooh, but an early pick down onto Glisten is exactly what they need to push on this point. Now without fear of that dynamite, that duplicate becomes a lot less scary, right? You're only going to be getting one of these tanks. Yes, you're playing in a triple tank, but if you can survive it, then you're going to be taking a great Discord immediately down onto HK, trying to get them out of this mode, but they're going to be dropping a bongo of their own. So much damage being thrown across this point. These tanks getting shredded out, waiting for the Transcendences to come out from the other side, but Silverstar doesn't have his up. Regardless, though, they're still going to manage to find frags through all of this. Solstice Esports muscle their way onto the point.
It's taking them so long, though, and we saw a really late ultimate being popped as well. Lambert goes for the duplication onto the Sigma, even though the team has already won the fight. That's a duplication you could have carried into this next round. Could have had to stand up to when Purple come calling, because it's the final fight territory. If you lose this next fight, you lose control of that point. You lose your best shot at keeping that payload, that point in your possession. And you've got to win every single fight from here until you equalize the percentage Purple has already built up.
Yeah, now with Lambent gone, this is going to be a really hard fight for Solstice, right? You're lucky you managed to maintain that Transcendence, but putting it to good use here is going to be extremely tricky, as there's so many threatening ultimates, not to mention the fact you've already lost Aspect as well. He pops the Transcendence earlier. They managed to find 3, though, which is going to matter so much because now there's no chance for that grab.
Well, if you're Solstice, you're doing a good job right now. You need to win this next fight. You used all of your ultimates in that last engagement, though, so this is the true storm that these guys have to weather. Sigma Flux, Supercharges, there's a lot of aggression going to be coming out from Purple, and Joey is the only one that can put a stop to it with the Immortality Field, and that is going to be so fragile for when Purple come calling.
Yeah, there's a lot of weight on Joey's shoulders. It's all at the time. Now throws it into the corner, relatively safe, but not keeping Vanguard alive. Greg picks up 3 off the Gravitic Flux in a quick fight win here for Purple to try and end the point.
Immortality Field, it came out at the right time, just in the wrong place, and Solstice, you lose Vanguard. The person who was closest to an ultimate hits that Flux just about now, but you've got to move into position. Curacao was already onto that Hammond, just trying to touch that point, keep Solstice in the game long enough so that they can pop the ultimate, but even then they don't have that follow-up coming through.
They do start off with a Gravitic Flux, though, that finds one. This is the opening that they need. Solstice trying to muscle their way over to the point. They've got the Tracer, they've got the Echo. This effectively just turned into a dive composition for them with just a Sigma, but Purple are handling it beautifully here. That ultimate advantage that you mentioned before is just so much to overcome. HK as well with the duplicate is only going to make things harder. Transcendence is up in this point and getting cracked anytime soon by Solstice. Purple take map 1.
So Solstice, they swap up their composition so that they can get onto the point faster. The Hammond comes in, the Tracer comes in. That's a lot of stall potential, but it isn't damage, it isn't pick potential. And so when it comes into that fight, you may be able to zip around the point long enough, but you're not going to be getting picks, you're not going to be setting up yourself for an advantage to win the long haul. And Purple had the ultimates, had the presence already in their favor, had all of the beefy, chunky health bars that not even a Hammond and a Tracer can really attempt to dislodge.
Yeah, now we're moving over to Gardens, right? The dive can be prevalent. You can run the brawl or the double shield. It's all there. But again, a lot of the strategies here revolve to just reaching that point first.
Well, that's one of the things, Symmetrics. They both got cancelled out before they could be properly used on Night Market, so it's just going to be that spawn teleporter out to give yourself a little bit of a better setup. Solstice is sticking with this, though. Lambent, they're going to go for the teleporter onto the point, and it's going to be extremely hard for Purple to intrude now.
ironic that now we see the teleporter and the Symmetra, but it's going to work out really well for Solstice here. They've already put themselves in a great position, set up their turrets, and they've gotten rid of the monkey, most importantly. Innominate, goodness gracious, it's like sea anemone. It's really hard, but he dives in, he's going to go down, and now without a main tank, Purple are going to have a hard time taking this point over first, and like we talk about all the other times that we see dive on these control points, if you don't take it initially, life all of a sudden gets really, really hard for you.
Well, that's the thing. Where are you going to dive? If you're Solstice, you play on point because that's got a ceiling. That's a very small enclosed space where Lambent's turrets are going to find a lot of value. If you're Innominate, then diving in and keeping yourself alive is going to be just as hard as pronouncing your own name. The Winston, he's going to get in. His health bar's going to be gone within a blink of an eye. And Greg on that Diva. You can't really defense matrix Symmetra turret beams. All you're going to be doing is providing ult charge. And yes, Symmetra wall isn't really impactful when it comes to the larger scale of things, but it means that Lambent gets to do so much damage completely free.
Yeah, it's never even had to get to that point. Solstice, though, they have to show us a little bit of prowess. Remember, they're still down a map. This is required for them if they want to be taking away Li Zhang. So you need to be very careful about how they play this.
There's not even really a person vulnerable that Purple can properly dive onto. There's no Ana, there's no Zenyatta. The support lineup is very much sustainable on their own with that Batiste, with that Brigitte.
Yeah, they've got the tools, they've got the positioning. Now it's just a matter of execution, not letting this Winston get too much value. The dive from Purple has to be extremely well executed onto one target. It's not easy to spot them out, but they're definitely there, right? The Ashe can die, the Baptiste can go down, force out the Immortality field, start just pressuring down point, charge up your ultimate. Losing Glisten early is not what you want to be doing! Amplification Matrix as well. This fight is almost definitely going the way of Solstice Esports, and they're going to continue to roll this ultimate advantage.
Purple tried to nano boost the Brigitte, and I would much rather have seen that nano boost go onto the Winston. It's the play that a lot of teams go for before they properly dive. The tanks take a lot of front face damage to allow an Ana to build up that nano boost to put it onto a Winston so the dive can have a little bit of extra oomph behind it, a little bit more survivability if you're running into something like double shielding with a Symmetra strategy. And nano Brigitte, unless she's got the rally up, is just going to be chewed out within seconds.
No, but Solstice Esports, they're going to back right on up to the point. Solstice Gaming has such a good position, so hard to be actually removed. Purple, again, like you mentioned, they want to charge up those ultimates pre-fight, but you really can't do that without allowing Solstice to poke at you. So every second they're out here is extremely dangerous. Even that accretion could end a life there, and it will. Takes down Alexio on top of it. Another one-man advantage here for Solstice, and they pick off Innominate yet again early on in the dive.
There's just no pressure at the moment. The dive doesn't have that key target for everyone to rally around and move on to. At this point, if you're Purple, you may have ultimates, but you're coming into final fight territory and something needs to be changed. The Primal Rage is going to do nothing except buy you some crucial seconds to get into position. I would much rather see a Reinhardt or even a Sigma, something that gives a little bit more poke damage that can try and get you a pick before you move in for this fight.
Well, they've got a nice ultimate advantage as well as this rally. It's going to give them a really big lot of sustain, and taking down Silverstar is fantastic here for Purple. A lot of sustain now gone from Solstice. That opens up these supports. That opens up a lot of the things they normally peel away. But the D-Mech takes down Vanguard Greg! That's exactly what you need. Finding one of those tank eliminations is so huge for them.
But Purple, they have a mammoth task ahead of them. They need to win every single one of these fights, and they need to do it with dive, and Solstice. They're swapping up the composition. Gone is the Symmetra. It's lost its value. You don't have control of the point. You can't put your turrets down unless they get chewed out within seconds. So Lambent's onto the Echo, which means poke, which means Alexio is looking extremely vulnerable. You've got a Winston bubble and a Brigitte shield to hide your main support, and if your main support goes down too early, it's curtains for your fight.
Oh, it's already curtains here for Glisten. The first frag down, the first elimination gone, and amplification matrix thrown into the point for good measure. They have to avoid that LOS, but look who's stuck in the back line. Innominate with nowhere to go. Silverstar beating him left and right. Animal abuse in the white room, but they still have more of a fight to take. Purple are running away frantically for their lives, but can't survive any of the damage. Solstice are just making such good concerted pushes forward.
Alexio is unchecked at the moment, but it doesn't matter because even with the mother of all Antony's connecting a 5-person one, all Joey does is plonk down an immortality field, and there's just no pick potential because the dive is doing so little damage.
Yeah, they're not really able to follow up on those massive plays at 42%. Purple are playing for stall. And you know what? I've seen it once in my life, this point get taken in overtime. But honestly, it's not looking likely to happen again here. Solstice Esports even up the score 1-1 and send us all the way to Control Center for our first map.
Purple were far too reluctant to swap off their composition there, though. And heading into Control Center, that is a map where you can't get away with dive. This is a very much Reinhardt-focused map where everyone meets in the middle. The Slugfest comes out, the hammer goes on through, Anna's charge up, nano boosts, that opens up the fight. You can't run a Winston. He doesn't have the mobility that places like Night Market and Garden have within Spades.
No, and seeing how these compositions change is actually going to be a little bit interesting, right? Depending on your level of aggression, you can go with things like the Orisa Reinhardt, like a double shield, even if you want to play very passively. You mentioned the Reinhardt, though, and you can run it with all sorts of things, the Zarya, the Sigma, or the Orisa, and we'll see that Orisa Reinhardt paired with a Junkrat and Reaper. There's a lot of damage coming the way of Purple, and they're going to have to handle it perfectly, or else they risk losing players like they did on the previous point. Immediately set up their Solstice, have the positioning over the point. Great halt, pulls onto 3 and walls off Khosrow. Luckily, though, will be getting away with their life. Listen, does get a lot of damage in, though. 31% already to the Bob, the point ready to unlock, but Solstice have the onus on them. They have to defend against this double shield and eventually push in. Lambent, though, immediately finds a pick with the mine and another one falling up onto Vega, and it seems like so much damage is just being thrown at Purple, and they can't avoid it all without giving up picks. AE, though, HKey turning it around, finding 2 of those icicles, but with enough Solstice players on the point, they should roll their way.
Solstice should not have won that fight. Joey's the first one to go down, gets picked up by Glyphon, and that should signify Purple to just move in so aggressively, but they don't have that Reinhardt. They can't go straight into the front line. They have to go for the poke approach with that Orisa, with that Sigma, and so Solstice, when they lose that Batiste, they've still got a Brigitte. They just press W and move in past the double shielding, and Purple cannot meet the aggression.
Yeah, this is just one of the best maps for Reinhardt because you can just make space without risk of any high ground, without risk of those off angles really ruining you. That paired with an Orisa makes it so hard, but now they've got more to worry about. There's a Riptide coming over top, and it takes down HKey.
And it's forced out Immortality Field. Vega throws that one in. If you're Solstice, you can push forward aggressively. You can chase the kills and try to stagger them out. Out goes the Zen, out goes the Ashe.
They smell blood and they want more right about now. Pushing all the way to the spawn. Selfless in the chat. And Nominat running for his life. HKey trying to own the space. Chucks in a Blizzard. Khosrow, very bad situation for them. The Orisa Shield not going to be saving them. Losing now your main tank stuck down to 1. That Reinhardt's going to get back to point relatively quickly. Purple, though, finding another pick is huge here. 4 versus 6 is going to be so difficult for Solstice. Whether or not, though, they give it up is going to be a curious decision. They do decide to hold. They're going to be using that immortality to keep Vanguard up, dropping the amplification matrix. Khosrow gets there just in time. This Junkrat, the Reaper, are still a threat, putting in so much damage, but finally, Purple cracked them open. Greg and Glisten especially throwing in a lot of that work.
But Purple, they've got a Sigma Flex. They're going to have a Supercharger and a Transcendence to stand up to what Solstice are going to be coming into this fight with. Shatter, Superchargers, Death Blossom. You can pull them out in that order door, and it will be a devastating combination. Shatter comes through, out goes the Superchargers, in comes the Death Blossom, and not even Alexia's Transcendence is going to be enough to keep this team alive.
They do need to be careful of that Shatter already out. Vega has to, or pardon me, Joey needs to land a perfect Immortality Field to be keeping this team up because there's a lot of damage about to come at them with this Gravitic Flux. However, they do manage to LOS it in time. Greg getting a little ahead of himself, using that one before his team had LOS. Now pushing on to the point. Solstice Esports, they are a force of nature. Not much to stop them, but a Blizzard will do exactly that. A little bit of nature going against them. HKey comes up with a big one, and again, catching Khosrow out.
So Solstice, they used that best initiating tool. Khosrow put the Shatter in far too early. Purple had pulled all the way back. I think it even got blocked by that Maywall coming out from HKey. And now Purple, they know that they don't have to weather the storm of a whole host of ultimates. They can push forward a lot more aggressively. They can really force Solstice to take a whole amount of damage from that poke before they come properly onto this point. Aspect still has this Death Blossom, and Lambent still has that Tire. You can pair them up. You can send a Tire in to pull out Vega's Immortality Field and then send the Reaper through. But Alessio is just still going to have that Transcendence.
Oh! Again, though, HKey with these icicles, he's like a surgeon every single time. Like, I'm not sure how much you know about lobotomies, but I'm not sure they were normally done with icicles. Normally, I'm pretty sure they had special tools for that.
I mean, it's the Trotsky special, isn't it? An ice pick straight through your brain, or in this case, the back of your head. Purple doing a very nice job taking us to that final fight territory, but they don't have ultimate store. They're going to have a Bob. Sigma Flex is going to might be enough to keep Solstice off the point, but they need to hold on for HK to get that Blizzard online.
It has to be perfect here from HK. Greg, though, already taken down one. Make it 3 now here. Purple are rolling this fight over. Overtime taking down. There might not even be a touch. Vanguard does manage to push forward with the help of that Fortify. But with Joey down and every single member of the team falling, Solstice Esports even get a say in whether or not they get that last fight.
Solstice Esports didn't even get to put Death Blossom in the last 3 fights. They had it available for so long, Dur, and it's not one of those where you want to hold on to it, waiting for that opportune moment, right? It's not a Graviton, it's not a Blizzard, it's something you throw it in the hopes that you can buy some space for your team to move on to point, maybe pick yourself up the pick, but in this case, you needed to burn out that Transcendence, you needed to burn out that Immortality field, and holding on to it means that every single time you walk into those fights with the ultimates that should be finding you the picks, they find nothing because Immortality field and Transcendence are still up and alive.
Yeah, not only were they unable to remove ultimates from the opposing team, but Purple just continued to steamroll and build up just this never-ending snowball of ultimates because HC was just getting so many picks, and a lot of that is due to the damage that the rest of the team is throwing out, of course, but there's something to be said. When you have that many final blows, you've got to be hitting some icicles.
Oh, HK on that Mei. There's really only one way that you can counter a Mei as well, and that's by fielding a Mei of your own. And they didn't play it the traditional Mei way on Control Center either. They didn't go for that super aggressive chokehold that a lot of teams opt into, where you just wait around for the team, the unsuspecting Reinhardt, to move a little bit further forward away from his team, and bam, up goes the wall, out goes the Reinhardt, and you win the push off of that, and that alone. No. And so if you were Solstice, you could have really punished that. The Mei was playing out in the open, which means the walls aren't that great for separating. You can just move around them and get back to your team. But it was those icicles, that precision play, that you just lost members every single time you were trying to approach that point. And that should not happen. Not to really key members of your team, like your support lineup. They should not be going down. They should not be coming out from behind that tank shield.
No, absolutely not. And I think it was something that we saw Purple do as well, though, right? On Lijiang Garden, it was kind of sloppy the way they were moving in. They were losing DPS. They were bleeding out tanks. I know Anominat got picked off on the Winston way too many times. And so it kind of shows this this gap in each of their play that they could look to exploit, right? That tells you that these spam compositions, there's something to them. These picks, they're there to be had. It's just a matter of capitalizing on them, though. As Solstice have lost, though, they do get map pick and they're taking it to Gibraltar. So those spam compositions are a little bit trickier to run.
And I think if you're Solstice, what you're hoping is that Purple leans into the dive. They were very reluctant to swap off the dive, even when they were losing with the dive on Gardens. And if you're Solstice, you managed to shut them down with Symmetra. I don't know about you, Dil, but there was a team way back when in Open Division of this year who pulled out the most bonkers Symmetra strategy I've ever seen, and it was on this very map where they had a Symmetra teleporter set up between those 2 rooms right underneath the high ground of point A, and every time they felt just a little bit pressured, all of the teams would just traverse from one end of the room to the other, and they tried to put a stop to the shenanigans with dive. And every time a Sombra came through, or a Rafari came through, or a Winston jumped in, bam, they just said goodbye, sent a postcard to the dive, and hopped over the space. And we're out and away.
There's a lot of interesting ways with dealing with the dive on this map, and it's something that came up in our previous cast for the Solstice Showdown. It's that you don't have to run dive on Gibraltar anymore. The double shield can be fairly powerful here, and right, trying to dive into that is something that Purple haven't really been successful in. I'm curious, though, Solstice, on their own attack, what they want to do, right? If they are looking to run a dive here on Gibraltar, it's something that we haven't seen from them yet, and so they kind of have to prove their mettle on it.
Yeah, and I'm very curious as well to see what that DPS lineup is looking like, because we've seen a little bit of a shift. It's not so much a massive shift, but it's definitely a little bit of an unsettling when it comes to that DPS lineup and who you want to properly field, because it was always before, you want an Echo, you want an Ashe, something that has that poke, something that has that win condition packaged and parceled and all wrapped up nice and neatly in that duplication ultimate. And now with Echo having a little bit of a tweaking to that primary, that focusing beam range, down from 20 meters to 16, suddenly the question of what you want to put into your DPS has become a lot more open. Suddenly there is room for a dive to come through, not with the Echo, but with the Genji. and we talk about how you want to shut down a dive, sometimes it can be a counter dive. You ignore what's coming towards you and send your own forces to dismantle the other team from the support lineup out.
There's a lot of different ways of dealing with dive, whether you want to run the double shield, whether you want to run the counter dive, like you're saying, especially with that Genji now being viable. We see HK locking it in early here on the defense, but I'd love to get your take on these teams and how you expect the Echo to counterplay the Genji.
Well, the Echo is going to be ignoring the Genji. Echo is not there to counter a Genji. Echo is there to counter the Widowmaker, to counter the Ana. So it's going to be, are you going to be finding the same amount of value as the other Genji coming in to get your support lineup? And look at what the support lineup is going to be. Solstice, you're going to have a little bit more aggression coming out with a Zenyatta, with a Brigitte, but you don't have that survivability, you don't have that sustain when it comes to that long healing.
Already though, HK is doing really well on this Genji, and it's all about keeping that Zenyatta alive. It's a quote-unquote greedy pick, right? You're giving up heals in favor of damage. You have to make it count. So that discarded target better go down. Whether it's going to be Kha'Zix, whether it's going to be Vanguard, I think that's going to be the question, is whether or not they're actually able to pull it off here.
You have to find value, because that Zenyatta, yes, Orb of Discord can be extremely crucial in having that 30% of increased damage, but the Zenyatta, if he goes down early, he loses all his value.
That he does. Now they need to back up. Purple don't have that much space to work with, and Lambent finding a pick down onto Glisten is exactly what you don't want to be seeing. And Nominat falls to follow that, and it's following the exact same pattern that it did over on Lijiang Garden. So much space given away. Purple just continue to back up and play way too passive.
Purple aren't going for the right target. They're not going for the support lineup. Instead, they're going for the healthier, beefier targets of that front line. And Silverstar has been able, completely unchecked, to build up 73% of the Transcendence. The one thing that can stop Purple's win condition, Nanoblade. If you're not careful, you wait too long on that ultimate door, Transcendence is up, and Nanoblade finds nothing.
Absolutely. That Transcendence is the one key to victory, and it's all about Silverstar getting up, using it correctly. Not to mention, avoiding an anti-nade from Alexio can be critical there, but the Nanoblade's coming in early here. And often dashing through. HK getting 3 here, slicing and dicing his way through the point. Will look for a 4th and does manage to get it.
Purple had that target focus. As soon as that Nanoblade comes on through, Silverstar gets antied, and the Genji just cuts through that support lineup like absolute butter. But if you're Purple, that was your win condition. Now you've got to cycle through to something else. You're going to have Infosight. That's going to give you a lot of information on where Solstice are coming from. That should set Greg up really nicely to get a sneaky Diva Bomb through. You can even have Inominat pop that Primal Rage to keep Crossroad occupied for the Diva Bomb to come through and not get blocked by a Winston Bubble.
You have to be very careful how you do this, though, because Solstice, they've been on the aggression this entire time. And Nominat, though, catches out Lambent on their own. An early pick onto this Echo, taking the duplicate out of the equation. Yes, we see Solstice with a whole host of ultimates, but they're not even going to get to use them.
They didn't put in the Transcendence in that fight. You can pop that, you can go aggressively. You don't have to worry about the Nano Boost. But now, Purple, the Genji's been unchecked, though, and it's already halfway up to the next win condition for Purple.
And Purple, time and time again. I mean, you can have as many ultimates as you want if you're Solstice. The only one that matters versus Nanoblade is going to be this Transcendence. All the others are basically just follow up. These sites aren't going to be super effective. They're going to use the rally to engage the fight. And I'm assuming they have to know about this Nanoblade that's going to be coming soon. HK has it up, just waiting for the right time to pull the trigger. Self-destruct's thrown in, though, for good measure here by Purple. Trying to find an early pick, trying to find a way to not use that Nanoblade, not have to use that key tool. But now Solstice, they're starting to fire back. Without Aspect, though, it is a 5v6 and a very rough one of that. Adaptive circuits are on, and it is Donkey Kong Country here on the point as two monkeys run hog wild. Left and right they go, chasing around this Brigitte. Vega finally falls, though. Without that level of sustain, Purple have to give up a lot of space.
Well, they might not be giving up space in this next fight, though, because the Genji, the Ana, they're waiting in the wings. They're waiting for that contest. Silverstar used the Transcendence in the last fight. It's not him!
He's got the Nanoblade. He's got another 3. He's looking for a 4th, trying to add to that play of the game meter and do exactly that. He will find 5 in one fight here and cleans up to stabilize.
That's what happens if you use Transcendence too early on. If Solstice had a Batiste, if Solstice had an Immortality field, they would have been able to put that in and keep Transcendence in the pocket for that exact moment. Because as soon as that Nanoblade comes out, that team is dead. They're just waiting for that final breath to be taken by HK. But if you're Solstice, you've got a Primal Rage, you've got a Diva Bomb coming on through, and Purple are going to be waiting yet again to cycle through. But HK, again, in a fight, he's already built up 65% to this next Nano Blade.
It's obscene. HK is popping off right now. For someone who can't even spell his own name right, he is doing some work on Genji. Throwing down one frag, though. Silverstar takes down Alexio, and that is a massive pick. Purple now without that main support, without the threat of Nano Blade anymore. HK has to do it bare naked. Chucks it in and immediately shut down. Lambent is going to be the bane of his existence. Now a duplicated over. Brigitte is going to make their life even harder. So much sustain on this point here for Solstice, and they're looking at a point C.
I love how hellbent Lambent was on just shutting HK down. Goes for the duplication onto the Genji, shield bashes him straight away, and now Solstice, they've got that normal rally to keep them all alive in this contest fight.
Yeah, and Solstice, they have so many tools, right? The dive is more so proper, less reliant on that one ultimate combo. There's not much for Solstice that just outright win the fight, so they have to dive perfectly and execute with the team composition that they're giving themselves.
And they kept a hold of the dive for all of point B. And point B is where dive sort of falls apart if you're attacking point C. You can pull it back with dive. A lot of this area is high ground focused, and that's why we're seeing Solstice already surging forward so aggressively. Meanwhile, the pillow just moves forward steadily with Silverstar sitting on it.
I mean, take a look at those ultimate charges as well. Solstice have such a large advantage moving on into this fight. Now the Nano is desynced with the Blade as well. That's only going to make things harder. Yeah, they swap it off onto an Echo here for HK. Aspect already going down, though. Purple have found themselves an early pick and a free fight to start to work back at that ultimate economy.
Purple needed to win that fight because they've swapped over to double shielding, and that takes time to set up, to find the position that you want to be in. You want to be, well, not playing the way you are at the moment. The Sigma is split off from the Orisa, which means you are vulnerable. You are a pocket that Solstice are going to see, and look at you like breakfast right now.
Absolutely, and Solstice have spotted their targets, and Aminat, self-destruct over top. Transcendence is not going to be saving you from that one. I am so sorry. Khosrow with the dive now up onto HK. Glisten, though, still a problem up on that high ground. The Primal Rage looking to remove them from it, and the second that Ashe is out of position, things get real dicey here for Purple.
Well, Solstice looking to keep this payload moving. Lambent going to be coming into that duplication, and Purple, they swapped out their composition, though they don't have an ultimate to try and barge their way towards to save them.
Absolutely not. Now Lambent is hellbent on taking this point, holding on to that spawn door. Now swaps over to the Orisa for the sustain. Doesn't even need the bongo to finish off this map. Solstice Esports put up an impressive time here on Gibraltar.
Purple's positioning was completely out of whack as soon as we entered point C. Dive flourishes. Dive is all about separating the teams into very small, very dealable little places, little agents that they can just drop onto and annihilate one by one and then move on to the next one. You have to counter dive by playing all together, by making sure that no one is a vulnerable target and everyone has that group CC, group protection, herd immunity sort of approach. Solstice, they see what Purple do. They willingly split themselves away from it. And what they do is they allow that dive not only to get picks, but to charge up ultimates. And because you're Purple, you needed that fight to last. You just swapped up your composition. Orisa Sigma take time to build up to supercharges, take time to build up to that Sigma flux. And by separating yourself, you denied yourself that time to build into those ultimates. You denied yourself a chance to stand on that equal footing when it comes to that contest as that payload moves on to the finish line.
Now, though, is Solstice move on to the defense, right? It's not a guaranteed thing that Purple aren't going to complete this map. They need to put up a solid stop to them. And weirdly enough, we're going to see swap positions. Oh, no, the Genji is not going to be had here from HE. Swaps over to the Hanzo. This could be interesting if they stick with it.
HK, well, on that Hanzo means that you're going to have a lot of mobility going from the high ground to the low ground, but you've still got shield break, you've still got pressure. There we go, off the Hanzo, sort of just a sonic arrow to see whether Solstice were holding up on that high ground, trying to go for the aggression and punish him for it, and onto the Genji, and if it isn't broke, don't fix it.
No, HK's Genji has been insane, and breaking open defenses is exactly what Nano Blade was designed for. Coming in over top, looking to charge up as much of that as they can. Already up to 20%. As this cart pushes underneath, a quick pick onto Lambent as well. No Echo to harass your backline anymore. Vega and Alexia are going to have a lot more space to work with.
There is a Widowmaker going on in the back. Glisten is able to win it, and in doing so, secures a massive amount of space for Purple as that payload keeps on moving through, and Solstice have to drop on before it hits point A.
Yeah, Purple, they spent a whole lot of time pushing that card forward while Solstice was diving their backline, and that may be to their demise here. Solstice now have to regroup on this card, but they have to regroup, and they're separated for it, right? The dive comes out on the high ground, and a beautiful stop with a nice set of target focus from Solstice, or pardon me,
and Glisten at the moment is completely unchecked. Aspect was off the Widowmaker onto the Tracer to try to get back into with the team, to get back into that contest. Now swaps off to the Widowmaker, but for this moment, you can allow Glisten to just set up wherever this Widow wants and take control of this absolutely massive line of sight. So even when Aspect pops their head through, they're making themselves already a target.
You've already lost H-Key though. Purple is going to have a really hard time pushing this without that Nanoblade. You might get the self-destruct off, and yes, Greg and Anominat's dives have been pretty good on this map, but you're not going to be able to do that if you're missing your most key aspect.
Glisten somehow, some reason, on the low ground in the backline, trying to get pot shots off. You need to be challenging Aspect right now, who just got into the fight and is already 50% off the way to that ultimate.
Well, he's finally arrived back. He's got the Nanoblade, getting a lot less value from it, though. Only managed to find one elimination. Does manage to get back with the team, though. Take out Silver Star and Vanguard. And this card barrels toward the end of a point B that's going to be really hard to hold.
Those Nanoblades have been just the nail in the coffin for Solstice. Time and time again, they've been unable to deal with H-Key on this Genji. When he's there without an ultimate, when he's there with an ultimate, he's finding picks, he's finding value. And Silverstar on the Zenyatta has not been able to build up sufficient sense to stop him.
No, and that trance buildup has been extremely slow here. I mentioned that Solstice put up an impressive time, but Purple are looking to beat the record right now. Nothing has stood in their way so far. In Solstice Esports, they've got to offer up something different. We see a swap onto an Orisa, onto a Diva. They're trying to play a little bit more sustainy, but this composition really isn't all there. You're keeping the Diva just for the self-destruct. So if that doesn't connect, I'm not really getting the value that I want out of this pick. Gonna be chucking it in early. Self-destruct both ways, though. Holds it into it. Greg finds two. A big start off here for Purple. One will be traded back by Joey, as well as Glisten, making it a third here for Purple. This is getting really dicey for Solstice.
Well, Vanguard is going to swap off the Diva onto the Sigma. You've already found value with that ultimate. Now you're going to go for that double shielding approach, and it's a good one personally. You've got a little bit more CC accretion, can try and shut down H-Key, who is just boarding his way yet again to a blade. Alexio barreling towards that Nano. Silverstar's finally got this Transcendence up, but we know it could be shut down by that Antinate. Alexio has to get pressured out.
And H-Key is nearly up to a Nanoblade, nearly up to the nail in the coffin that you mentioned before. There's no Transcendent Silverstar! He pops it so early! He feels surrounded by the Genji, and this is free real estate, baby! Pops straight through that immortality field. 1, 2, 3, and ABC. This map is over. Blink and you miss it. Purple put up an insane time on Gibraltar.
Silverstar fell for the biggest space. It's still going on, though. Solstice
This ball!
Crawl on to this point. There's a Hammond around, but he's going to go down within moments. They don't have an ultimate that they can use to win this fight back into their favor, and Purple have that point presence, that body presence on the payload.
They do. They're looking for one elimination, but they just can't find any sort of foothold here on the point. They have to touch off of it. Over a 4-minute time bank there from Purple. We said Solstice's was good, and H-Key's Genji was good on the defense, but on the attack is just a whole other beast when he gets to control the pace of the game.
So I said that Silverstar fell for the oldest trick in the book, and it's unfortunately a trick that I myself have fallen afoul of. The Genji was nanoed, and normally if you're a Zenyatta, you see a nanoed Genji, you know what's going to be coming out in a couple of seconds, and you feel that pressure, especially now with those Genji changes coming through. He's got more damage, 28 up to 30. That's more kill potential. You have to pop your ultimate at the perfect time, otherwise you're dead, and you just see that Q button colored in. You can't press it as your team fall before the blade. And what does he do? He presses Q before the blade comes through. And H-Key, he just gets to sit and wait for that Transcendence to run its course, and then dry blade when there is nothing that you can do to shut him down.
And now Solstice, they swap off of the Zenyatta, and I actually really dislike this. There isn't a single support ultimate to stop that Nanoblade.
I wanted to see a Batiste. I would have adored to see a Batiste. We saw Joey swap onto the Batiste in that final dregs of the fight. And on the Brigitte, yes, you're going to have that shield bash. You can try and shut down this Genji with that one, but we've seen Joey on that Brigitte before. Shield bash has not been enough to stop HK, has not been enough to stop this Genji in his tracks when he's up normally, when he's up with Nanoblade. And I agree with you, Dor. Silverstar has to land that sleep dart, otherwise this team, things are going to be looking very dire every single time that win condition cycles its way through.
Absolutely right, Mox. Dire straits here for Solstice. They've got a minute on the clock. A singular fight could ruin them, and that's what HK's looking to deliver. 1, 2, maybe even a third frag here for Purple as they engage down onto the cart, trying to make this stagger as long as possible and take as much time off the clock. 30 seconds remain here in Solstice Esports. For them, it's pretty much now or never.
And Purple, look at these ult charge bars, though. 77% of the way to the blade. If you're Solstice, now is the time that you need to swap in that Batiste. You need to have that survivability on your side. It might not work with the dive, but you need that presence on the payload. You need to have that survivability because you're not going to be able to build up to a rally. You're not going to have that safety cushion to fall back onto.
Yeah, they're lying in wait underneath, and I feel like if you're Solstice, you have to know what's coming at this point. Alexio just trying to get charged up. Solstice is their one chance. If you can win this fight before the nano gets online, you are in the clear. Pushing through, HK dropping extremely low on this Genji. The Ana doing everything in her power to keep him up. 95% to that nano blade. It's almost time for HK. Alexio's got up, dashes up. Nano blade in, finds one. Looking for a second. The second is found. A third on to Khosrow. Sealing it out. HK making a statement to end this one for Purple.
4 of 6. Felled by the Nano Blade. We said it so many times, so we wanted to see survivability. We wanted to see something that could counter that Nano Blade, and it felt as if Solstice ignored us entirely. Not only that, they ignored the Nano Blade entirely, and that is just not something that you can allow. Not after seeing HQ, the progress that guy was making when he had focus on him. We got to see that Genji completely unleashed, and if you're Solstice, that's something you cannot allow to happen in future.
Well, you have to stop the same exact thing, right? As much as you were scared about a nano blade on the attack, right? Just stopping your attack. Now you have to worry about a nano blade on the defense. And this card is only one fight's worth of distance through this point. Solstice Esports, you need to have a support ultimate at this point. They still haven't locked one in.
Okay, but they've got Lambent on this Torbjorn. So you're not going to be relying on the support lineup to keep yourself alive. You're going to be relying on the Torb turret doing enough to dissuade HK on that Genji so that he doesn't get the insane amount of damage he's been doing. He doesn't get to build up nanoblades as quickly as he's been allowed to do. But when you've got 4 minutes and 1 second on the board for Purple, it doesn't matter how long it takes. That blade is going to be coming through. And if you're Solstice, you better hope that you've got Rally alive and available for when it comes. Otherwise, Silverstar is going to have to land the monster of all sleep darts, and the team cannot let that sleeping Genji wake up.
It feels a little bit like Purple are taking a victory lap, but they're not done yet. They do have to manage to pull this off, and if HK can't land that critical nano blade, their odds go down significantly. Solstice trying to hold on to his high ground for the time being. Good anti-nade lands down onto a couple there from Silverstar, but not really able to follow up on it right now. Solstice only just waiting for the right opportunity to drop on this cart, waiting for it to go underneath that inevitable overpass. However, not much ultimate charge gained by HK yet. Dive in here. Solstice Esports find an opportunity. They think they see a weakness, and it's Vega going down. That Brigitte no longer available to peel for the supports. Alexia has to back up and respect that.
But the payload, it was able to move so far along before Solstice tried to progress it, that now you just need to win one fight if you're Purple. There's no chance to get a contest because it's so close to that finish line, and HK is so close to that blade. Alexia is so close to that nano.
I mean, HK's blade timer is just a timer to this map being over at this point. Purple, they have it locked down. They don't even need the blade right now. 3 alive, and Nano Monkey is up. Khosrow trying to put in some sort of damage to the backline, but Vega's actually going to be getting the Nano from Alexio, trying to steal this one out and guaranteed the sustain they need. It gets booped off even, and now Solstice Esports, they are facing down the 2-0.
So if you're Solstice, you know what? We talked about the support lineup and how we'd like to see it swap around to counter the exact thing that you're about to see pop up on your screen. This is going to be textbook definition of how you want to nanoblade. First, you get the Zen, and then, you know, you've got free reign. You don't have to worry about Transcendence. You don't have to worry about Discord hanging over your head. If you're Crossroad, you just have to stand there and accept your fate. We talked about how we want to see that support lineup change. If Batiste come through, the Zenyatta stick around. I want to see a Sombra. I want the DPS to double down, either a Sombra or a McCree. Brigitte Shield Bash, Orb of Discord, it's just not enough to shut this Genji down. And if you're Solstice, you're fine with your frontline. Your supports are doing their job. They're keeping everyone up and building up to these ultimates and putting them in when they should be. Where you're falling, and every single time you're falling at this exact same point, is in dealing with that Nanoblade combination.
Absolutely. And not denying him any of the charge before. Oftentimes, it really is H-Key before the fights, before the Nanoblades. He's finding picks. This man is getting obscene amounts of ultimate charge way too early on into the game. And I think Solstice could stand to deny him a good bit of that.
So they tried to go with the Tourbillon. It didn't work out because they placed the turret in a far too open area. They put it right onto the high ground, not around any sort of shielding. And so if you're purple, we saw what happened. The Widowmaker Glisten just saw where the turret was, charged up a shot, scoped it out, took it on through, and HK, it's business as usual that Genji gets to go on through. And then Solstice, they scattered. They went all off the high ground, all into these side rooms. They clumped themselves up. They made themselves extremely easy targets, and they didn't give themselves the space to be able to deal with the Genji when he dashed through them. If you're Solstice, you know it's a problem. You've tried to combat it, but you haven't tried to combat it in the right way. Even putting a Mei in, just having a Blizzard go down on that primary fire CC to try and lock up that Genji's legs when he goes in for the attack, and he goes in for the attack. HK is so aggressive. If you have any form of extra CC on your side, you can punish him for this. You can make him pay for his arrogance, and time again, he goes in, gets out alive when he really should not be.
Yeah, he's gotten a lot more value on the Genji than he rightfully should have, but if there's one person who's not losing, or one set of people who's not losing, it's us, the viewers. These Nanoblades are great. And Moxie, I understand as a support player, you recently jokingly likened it to PTSD from previous seasons of Dive, but as someone who's Genji illiterate, I will say, you've bared witness to my 20% win rate Genji. It's nice to live vicariously through someone like HK.
It's sort of the what you wish you could pull off as Genji, isn't it? Every Genji main who's watching right now is looking at HK's play and going, "Ha! We told you that Genji's still viable," and going into that games and insta-locking him. And I think with these changes that have come into the patch, what we're seeing is that Genji has had an entirely new wave where everyone who's loved this guy, and if you love Genji, you really love Genji, you play him for hours upon hours upon hours until you know his kit like the back of your hand. And all of these changes, all of these ways that you just have a little bit of an easier life, a little bit of an easier way of clearing up those kills, even the patch notes themselves.
The clear pushing through.
Like to see that Genji sometimes lost out on kills because he needed to reload or they got a little bit too far away. Blizzard have gone out of their way to change that. This means all of these horrible things that Genji means had to deal with, all of those really irritating tear your hair out moments when an Ana and Yada gets away when he perhaps shouldn't have, they're all gone. And so it becomes even more crucial to shut down capable Genjis and Solstice. We've harkened on about it time and time again. And that's because if we see that Genji shut down, Purple don't have anything else to really properly offer, because every single fight that they go into, they never really come alive until that Nanoblade comes out. The bombs have been nice. The tank play has been nice. The supports do their jobs. The antis coming out have been beautiful, being clean, but they're not fight-winning abilities. They're not fight-winning ultimates. Without that Nanoblade, Purple's main source of strength, it all goes away, and the team are going to have to be turning to some other alternative. And if you've got a Genji player who just plays Genji and plays Genji and plays Genji, there is a trap that they can't transition onto another DPS. That they're not going to be as strong with that DPS, and Solstice can punish that and expose that as a problem.
I mean, I think it's crazy because as much as the flexibility of HK is a little bit in question right now, we've seen a really strong Mei out of him. We've seen a really strong Genji out of him. And honestly, if I'm purple, I'm doing nothing but running that Genji. Won you that map, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's Solstice Esports pick, and it's going to be Eichenwald for the hybrid. You mentioned a lot of counters to this Genji. Now, given the map, what do you think are the best choices?
This is your best bet, right? You cannot take us to Numbani, because that is where you just get shut down by a Genji 24/7. That's Genji's playground. If it's Eichenwald, there's a lot of chokes. There's a lot of punishments for Genji if they try to go on flanks, because it's very, very open. you know exactly where a Genji is going to be coming out of, right? He's either got to go through that side room or through that choke. He can't really take that massive long dash around that Doomfists and Pharahs can get away with. So if you're Solstice, you need to be holding up at choke. You need to make sure that the Genji gets stopped in his tracks before he moves on to point, because then the field becomes a lot wider. He can have that mobility back into his kit, and it becomes a lot harder to shut him down.
Well, shutting him down is pretty much the only thing that Solstice need to do, right? That last game, HK made it. I mean, of course, Purple were doing things correctly, but you can't ignore the fact that the Genji broke every single fight. And I think there's more to worry about with Purple than HK. A lot of these players are playing some extremely deadly Overwatch, not to mention the supports who have been almost completely uncontested from them at this point. Solstice Esports, they've got a lot to fight through, but they have the tools to do it. They've showed us a good amount of promise as well. Lambent on this Echo has been especially good.
But they're going to be dealing with something that isn't a Genji this time around, though. HK is on the Echo. We've seen this guy on the Mei. We've seen this guy on the Genji. If he plays Echo like those other players, Solstice, if you don't have Aspect connecting those shots, not even going to have that Mercy pocket, not going to have that damage boost going through. So you do have to connect those shots in a very rapid succession. Otherwise, that Echo is just going to use the damage he takes to turn into ult charge for Vega and Alexio.
Absolutely. Purple, they have a new game plan. It's not a reliance on the Genji, but it is on Glisten, taking down Cosgrove, Vanguard out of the way. No tanks, that means you can't take space.
Well, Solstice going to be shown the door. They do manage to pick up HK, and that is a good way to start off. You can maybe try and regroup your forces. You've got the respawn a little bit closer. But if you're Purple, you're a little bit closer to ultimates. And this is the thing that you can really use to punish Solstice if they try to go for that early aggression, because Glisten is going to hit that bob a lot faster than Aspect at that rate. And if you're Solstice, you do not want to burn an Immortality field on a simple bob.
Yeah, these amplification matrices as well can be especially deadly. Combo those with Halls, combo those with Accretions. The Immortality field is already out for Purple. It's a bit of a dangerous fight for them if they try to push in here. Alexio, though, makes it a lot less so. Silverstar now out of the way. No Discord Orb available to really take down these tanks anymore. Immortality field now out from Solstice. It's a dead even playing field, but Lambent turns it back around the sticky bombs again. Back on the support line, the first amplification matrix will be used by Purple, and they use it perfectly, taking down Vanguard and Cosro right at the beginning of the fight.
Vanguard got halted into it. He was trying to disengage, but Inominat comes up huge with the pull, and he gets just yanked into the damage he did not want to take. And Purple, that yank saved them because they lost Alexio when he was 5% away from that Transcendence. Solstice could have pressed that ignition, could have gone for that aggression, but Vega drops Amplification Matrix, buys them the time, buys them the spaces. All of Solstice's scramble to disengage. They will have an Amplification Matrix of their own, though, and Purple, they might need to just put in Transcendence to save themselves through that one, and that should pave the way for Aspect or even Vanguard if he's able to get that Sigma Flex up fast enough.
Well, they use their amplification matrix a little early. They get some space from it. This Gravitic Flux, though, is way bigger. Picks up 4, slams him right back down. Lambent, though, with the follow-up is really huge onto HK, taking away that flank route. Now, Purple, they're just going to push back to the edge of the point. Solstice, if they use their damage effectively, they should be able to just muzzle their way through. Transcendence now out here, though, from Alexio. They're looking for full sustain. They're committing to trying to win this point, but it's going to be extremely difficult. No, Greg and Glisten, again, just like Li Zhang, are coming up big in the kill feed.
And Solstice is separated. It's the tank split up from the team. And they just get absolutely chewed upon by Purple. But if you're Solstice, you've got this win condition now, right? Alexio used Transcendence, burned it in that last fight a little bit unnecessarily. And so Vanguard and Crossroad, if they can combine Ultimate, Supercharge, the Sigma Flux, the Halt to go into the mix, you can force Vega to put that Immortality field in early, and that sets up Vanguard to come in with that Sigma Flux to pick up that win condition that Solstice is searching for.
But there's a deceptive amount of ultimate charge here for Purple. They're so close to a lot of these. The Flux, the Duplicate, even the Ant Matrix. All of these are great peel options. Jump down the Bongo and the Ant Matrix at the same time. It's a lot of damage, but you really don't want to be layering those up. Solstice just back off very wisely. Use a Gravitic Flux of their own to pick up everybody on the side of Purple. No follow-up damage means that now it's HK's turn of Gravitic Flux from there and does not end up connecting. Runs out of time on the Duplicate before they can get it down. However, the focusing beams are going to be throwing one either way here. Slowly but surely, Purple are running out of space on this point as it begins to take over the way of Solstice, and they follow up with a ton of damage.
But Purple, they may have been running out of space in that next fight. Solstice are running out of time. And if you're Purple, you've got a Bob, you've got a Transcendence, you're not going to be able to get this recontest go. Vega had very briefly swapped onto the Lucio, and I wondered if the team maybe tried to speed boost on, get Glisten to send that Bob along, get Alexio in with that Transcendence, and Solstice look extremely unlikely to take that point, but they don't go for that play, and Payload starts properly moving. Solstice 2 minutes, 24 seconds to keep this momentum because they have to. If they lose this next fight, Purple get control of the high ground and can set up ultimates like a supercharger, like a duplication that allows them to just keep picking up these fights.
Yeah, and I think with 2 minutes and 10 seconds on the clock, right, that's only going to be more difficult here for Solstice, right? You don't have the ultimate economy to roll the other way. Purple has a lot of tools to really stop you with. That Transcendence, most notably, is just so far ahead of where Silverstar is. However, this positioning is excellent for them. It's going to offer them a lot of opportunity to actually hold on to this card. Amplification makes to ensure that it stays. Alexio has to use that Transcendence, which is probably not where you want to be using it, fighting for that high ground and still losing the fight. Aspects finding Vega all the way in the back here. A fantastic start off for the attacking side. Cosmo now taking even more space and asserting his dominance on this high ground, saying, this is ours. Get the hell off.
Well, Purple went far too aggressively, but Glisten is not going to take that loss lying down, though. Gets two. Gets the Zenyatta and the Echo. So if you're Solstice, you have to wait just a little bit longer. Your Zenyatta is going to be extremely vulnerable when you try to get him back into this mix, and Purple can try and punish this one. Keep that off support separated. Look at where they're positioning. They're not going to make Silverstar's passage onto that payload easy.
No, absolutely not. Silverstar cannot close that distance. You can tell HK is just keeping him zoned off along with Inomat. Now they own that high ground, and Purple inevitably get what they want because that cart just has to move forward. You have to have people on it. Now it's up to Solstice to try and displace them off.
And they don't have a Transcendence to pop, to burn, to allow them to move on to that payload safely without worrying about losing an off support or even a main support as you go through. And Purple, they've got an Immortality field. Alexio is going to have all of that high ground to just set that Discord orb up and allow Glisten and Greg to find so much value with these ultimates.
Well, it's about timing, starting off with the Critic Flux, so everybody up, everybody down. It's like a awful carnival ride here for Solstice. They can't even get in. Dynamite dropped in. Bob as well. Glisten will be losing it relatively quickly there. I'm actually not sure what on earth happened to that Bob, but it did get enough value. They were able to follow up with Greg and Alexio. Alexio, though, will fall, so no Transcendence available for the fight. Means that they want to be pushing in here with Lambent, copying over, duplicating over onto the Sigma. HK in the backline, though, duplicates in Orisa, and it's just monkey business all over the cart right now. But there's just a more Orisas on one side of the field than the other. Purple dropping down double bongos to ensure their victory in overtime. Vanguard can't even reach the point in time. Solstice Esports shut down at Point Bravo.
And Silverstar, he didn't have that Transcendence. He got shut down himself before he could use it. And if you're Solstice, that was the one ultimate. You were so close to it. You needed to have it up on that payload to guarantee you just a little pocket of time, a little pocket of space for you to build up to ultimates and maybe find a footing on that payload. But because they'd lost those two crucial members, the Ashe and the Zenyatta in that last fight, in that battle of the high ground, and weren't able to really properly regroup, weren't able to eject Team Purple from that high ground, it became so hard to actually move on to that payload. And it was soon against that overtime. It was that final fight territory. You needed to already be on the payload. You couldn't lose anyone as you tried to move towards it. Otherwise, you would just lose the map immediately. But we will see the teams swapping sides. So now if you're Solstice, you are going to be on the defense. Joey on this Batiste, we wanted to see it. This is what we wanted to see coming out on Gibraltar. And it's a nice play we get to see because it's a sort of fail-safe play. So if Silverstar doesn't have that Transcendence up and available, Joey can come in with that Immortality field, give Solstice just a little bit of extra breathing room, give Silverstar a little bit of less pressure to stay alive long enough, and he can focus more on just finding the space, finding the time to put on that Orb of Discord, and just keep that momentum, keep all of Solstice still alive and breathing through these fights. But Purple, well, HK is back on this Echo, going to be doing a lot of damage, going to be trying to just get that pick off, and we've seen the backline from Solstice gets pressured into putting Immortality Field and Transcendence early on into these fights, and if they keep doing that, they're going to lose this map.
Absolutely. And HK, I mean, we talked about his hero pool, but honestly seems like a threat on everything you can put this man on. Looking to dual limit, takes him out of the skies, but his team is dying beneath him. Glisten and Alexio are traded out, pushing directly into the mini room, and I love this from Solstice. Yes, you're playing the double shield, but that doesn't mean you can play it like a dive.
And you don't have to play passively either. You can just move straight onto that point. And if you're purple, well, how do you properly go into this? Because you've got a double shield of your own, but you have to actually move forward. You have to get that shield, get those tanks properly moving, and that sets Solstice up to just keep this poke going on through. They have the luxury of already having those shields set up, and purple, they're the ones who have to duck their head out of this cover and take a massive amount of damage. Joey's already got the amplification bolt up. Those shields may be double. They're not going to be lasting seconds when that comes down.
Yeah, this application matrix as well is going to be huge, halting him in, getting him a lot of ultimate charge here, and setting Solstice Esports really far ahead. Look at these ultimate charges.
And if you're Solstice, this is a really good thing, right? Because you need to keep them held at point A. This is your best bet at keeping this payload moving because you don't have that luxury of all of point B. You don't have that luxury of payload trying to move across bridge. So if you're Solstice, you need to put all of your eggs into the basket of this choke, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're not allowing purple free passage onto this point. It is something that's only going to last for a couple more moments because HK is going to have this duplication, and that is going to herald a massive rush of aggression from this team.
Solstice have already lost Lambent, though, making a donation to the H-Key montage group. Now just waiting to capitalize on that purple, aggress onto the point, use the amplification matrix, and oh my god, they're cowering behind this clock tower. They can barely get out. Oh, but the accretion connects onto Alexio. No more charging of that Transcendence. What an opening for Solstice. In such a small timing they had to hit to actually win that fight.
And Solstice, they've got their win condition. Right now it's protect the Zenyatta, protect the present, because Silverstar needs to keep that Transcendence in the pocket. Purple, they've got this duplication, they've got this Bob. That's a lot of aggression that this team can go in with. And so if you're the support lineup for Solstice, you are looking like very juicy targets. You cannot go down early, you cannot go down before this fight properly starts, because you are the ones that can bail your team out from the ultimates that Purple are going to be throwing at your face.
And yet again, Purple using that application matrix, 1:16 on the clock. I want to harken back to when Solstice completed this. They had 15 seconds remaining on point A, and Nominat is going down and is going to make even more of that time burn off for Purple.
And it's very hard to get your Orisa back with the team. She's slow, she's clunky. You don't have that Lucio, that speed boost to get her safely into the fight. If you're Purple, though, you've got a whole bunch of ultimates to come in. Yes, you've only got 53 seconds to work with, though, but they need one clean, good fight to wipe Solstice off the face of this map, and they're just banking ultimates up. They can come in, they can burn out that Transcendence, that Immortality Field, and come in with Sigma Flux and Supercharges.
The Halt comboed with the Gravitic Flux, though, works again. Silverstar, though, holds the Transcendence still really late. They can look for a re-engage off the back of this. Push past this Amplification Matrix even. The Dynamite only lands down onto one. Cosro in a rough situation, though. Oh, and a third! Gravitic Flux found H-Key, finding the best of them somehow. The non-tank player putting up some serious numbers on the tank.
One good fight for Purple. That was all that they needed. One bad fight for Solstice, and they invested so much because they could see that they could full hold, though. And that means that they've got a Bob to try and buy themselves just a little bit of time. And Purple, they're not going to allow Solstice to take the high ground to get the space to set that ultimate up. Inominat's got the supercharges, and you can place it because you've got the luxury of setting up now. You can place it out of the line of sight of this team, and you can find all of the value and stay up for the full duration.
Purple and Solstice, so a lot is going to be had off of just this high ground battle right now, though. It's Solstice Esports muscling them off and make sure they don't get anything. And Vega going down is huge here. Now they can set themselves up properly, push them off this cart. You're lacking a main support. You have to be patient here if you're Purple.
And they're not being patient, and they're paying for it. Out goes the Echo. And if you're Solstice, you're just laughing right now. You don't even need to throw an Aspect Bomb.
Yeah, that's a pick you can take straight to the bank here. Solstice have charged up ultimates in the meantime as well.
They've still got this Bob, they've still got their supercharges, and you can combine those. And if you're Vega, Immortality Field is looking very fragile right now.
Absolutely, the Bongo's gonna be dropped early here. A lot of damage through. Vega gets picked off early, and again, no main support. The Bob from the high ground as well. Just is going to be the nail in the coffin, the straw that breaks Purple's back right now. 1:30 on the clock, and it's now or never you want to seal it out at match point.
And if you're Solstice, you are sitting really pretty. You've got control of this payload. You've got control of this high ground. It's in a really rough spot for Purple to get into as well. because they take so much damage. All of these sites, if they try to trespass onto the payload, are so very open, and they're trying to push through castle to take less damage before the fight properly starts, to try to build up a couple of ultimates and prevent Solstice from hitting theirs, because Vanguard is so close to that Sigma Flux.
Big pick onto Lambent, though it hasn't mattered in the past. Solstice have managed to clutch it out regardless. Amplification Matrix as well, just burning time off of this clock. Purple managed to find themselves another set of 2, though. This is doable. The cart inching forward. Solstice, you cannot forget, it's heading straight for that yellow box, and you've lost all your members. Purple pull a fight out of nowhere to end the hopes and dreams of Solstice and 3-0 them at their own home turf.
So Purple takes the fight to Solstice, occupies the team. Solstice retreat onto high ground, retreating to the side rooms. They don't go to cart, they don't contest it, they don't stop its movement. And so it just rolls and rolls and rolls and chugs onto that finish line, and there's nothing, there's not even any members of Solstice close enough to try to contest it, even if they were alive.
No, and I've got to say, really well fought game by Purple. And again, I mean, who else to highlight in this match other than H-Key? Mei, Genji, Echo, every single character they put this person on, just insane. Obscene amounts of value. That final fight, you mentioned it, Solstice, they were sitting pretty. They had every advantage in the book. And then Purple had the advantage of having H-Key on their team and finding himself 2 focusing beam kills, not only onto a support, but also onto a tank.
But Alexio as well. The Ana was able to keep pace with the Genji, able to keep those nano coming in to give that blade just a little bit of an extra oomph. And not only that, the anti-nades coming out were clean. All of the tanks, we talked about how the tanks were able to stay alive for so long. Yes, there was a little bit of a hiccup on Gardens where Inominat went down a couple of times early on that Winston, but it's extremely tough sending a Winston in with only really an Ana to try to support him into Symmetra lair with all turrets set up. But on those other maps, Alexia was able to keep that front line up and flourishing. And because we didn't really talk about them, we didn't talk about them going down early, we didn't talk about them being out of position, that's a good sign for a support. If a caster doesn't talk about a backline, it means that they're doing their job, and it means that they're doing their job well.
Yeah, I think everybody could be complimented on the side of Purple right now. Solstice, though, they showed us some serious promise, right? I feel like their ultimate economy was very, very good. Their proactive use of ultimates was great. There were some really good amplification matrices and some questionable ones. I think if they can find those ones that were very, very effective, they work off them perfectly. Their halt combos were gorgeous playing up against Purple. And yes, you end up losing the match, but I definitely think Solstice showed a lot of promise there.
Unfortunately, it was a bit late promise, and that was the thing, because they came alive in Iconvolt. They came alive when we saw the swaps that we had been begging this team to move on to. When that Batiste comes in, when that Zenyatta sticks around with him, you've got that breathing space. You don't have that worry of we have to build up to one thing and this only one thing can shut this nano blade down, otherwise we're just dead. You've got Immortality Field, you've got Transcends, that failsafe, that push in case of an emergency button that is a 25-second cooldown rather than a slow burn to an ultimate. And I think if we'd seen a Batiste just a little bit earlier, then maybe Solstice would have been able to keep the score just a little bit closer. But it's good to see the team, they identified the problem, they were finally able to figure out how to fix it. And moving forward in this tournament, remember, it's a double elimination. Solstice still have a shot at moving back into that upper bracket. This is information that they can take and carry on through, because cast your mind back to the seedings. This was a match that from seedings was not going to be close, and I don't think the score reflects at least how close Iconvolt was.
Yeah, Eichenwald, they both put up a fantastic fight. Purple, at the end of the day, though, they come up big. Solstice Esports, I think Captain Hindsight's going to be visiting them and doing a bit of justice for him as well, because that lower bracket, while scary, you come into that with a lot of information. This game, you learned a lot about what does and does not work for your team compositions, and hopefully that's something that they can take to the bank and make count. As for tonight, though, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be all we have for you. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow, though. There's more action. I believe we're going to be starting off with Regen versus Dogs and Noodles, and that is bound to be a good match. You absolutely will not want to miss it. If you want to go ahead and follow Solstice Gaming on Twitter, it's at Solstice Gaming with 2 G's on the end. If you want to follow Moxie or it's at Got Moxie with 2 T's on Twitter, and I'm at Door_cast. Thank you so much for watching, though, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow.